Hello, my name is Isaac, and I'm a graduate researcher at the University of Melbourne. I want to start off by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which this research took place. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to the Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. I will be presenting the results of my study measuring variation of serotiny of an obligate cedar across a fire-aridity gradient. Callitris verrucosa is an obligate cedar that recruits prolifically after fire, although it can sometimes recruit between fires. I measured 500 individuals from 60 sites across the Murray-Valley Basin. Today we'll be mostly talking about serotiny, the storage of seeds in woody cones, that it's an advantageous trait for species that are killed by fire. Level of serotiny was measured by counting open and closed cones in a consistent portion of the tree's canopy. Other traits, including bark thickness, basal diameter, canopy height, and canopy diameter, stand density were also measured, but for the purpose of today, I'll just be talking about serotiny. Across the Murray-Valley Basin, fire frequency declines to the north alongside increasing aridity. These polygons represent parks managed for conservation that contain mallee vegetation. Fire is strongly related to aridity because growth of fuel is limited by rainfall in this low productivity region. Therefore, I use spatial models to explain the observed fire frequency, which is on the left, using rainfall, temperature, soil, and topography data. I then created a prediction, shown on the right, from these models to represent fire frequency beyond our current records to fill in the unknown areas. I extracted these layers to each of my sites, shown as the circles on the left, to explore relationships with Callitris traits that were averaged for each site. Intraspecific variation in serotiny in Callitris verrucosa was strongly correlated with the gradient of climate and fire, demonstrating its phenotypic variation and the potential for this species to adapt to an uncertain future with climate change. Level of serotiny is weakest and more variable at the northern extent where fire frequency is relatively low. I would like to note here my predicted fire frequency was slightly better at explaining Callitris traits than the observed. While it is impossible to fully separate the influence of fire and aridity as they are intrinsically linked, these results show that my predictive modeling was somewhat beneficial. My results indicate clinal variation in Callitris verrucosa along the gradient. From this study, I have demonstrated how the connection between environment and fire drive phenotypic variation of Callitris verrucosa. Here you see 3 individuals in the northern extent of the gradient. On the left, a rare seedling isolated and surrounded by bunchgrass. In the middle, a sunburnt individual that was barely hanging on. And on the right, an old Callitris at the edge of a dry lake bed and at the northern extent of its geographic range. For comparison, here is a dense stand of many young individuals that were ubiquitous across the southern extent of this study. The variable behavior of Callitris verrucosa's fire-related traits suggest ecotypes might adapt differently across its range from alternative environmental conditions. Exploring the relationship between trait variation and climate and fire gradients provides useful insight into the evolution of fire-prone species. In order to predict how plants will respond to an uncertain future, first we must understand how plants came to dominate in a flammable world. Thank you very much.